Next topic here, and this is the last one. I've got two quotes here. I call this toxic masculinity and transgenderism. That's sort of the bucket that I put these two quotes in. So this quote here is by Sheila Jeffries, who writes and teaches in the area of sexual politics, international gender politics, and lesbian and gay politics. In her, I believe it's a book called Gender Hurts, a feminist analysis of the politics of transgenderism in 2014. She writes the following, open quote, "Radical feminist theorists do not seek to make gender a bit more flexible, but to eliminate it. They are gender abolitionists and understand gender to provide the framework and rationale for male dominance. In the radical feminist approach, masculinity is the behavior of the male ruling class, and femininity is the behavior of the subordinate class of women. Thus, gender can have no place in the egalitarian future that feminism aims to create," close quote.
You mentioned a very important word, the egalitarianism. If you actually look at the dictionary definition of egalitarianism, you would not need the word feminism. And I always say to people, go back to common sense. Look at the word feminism. It is made of a subword called feminine. What does feminine refer to? The female gender. So how can you argue that a word which, by the way, that feminism is in the present infinitive, and what that means is it's taking the present tense and it's stretching it out to eternity on both ends. In other words, it's not a state which ends. It is a state which perpetuates. It's like I would say communism or masculinism. It's not referring to a period in history where men have all this power and we're going to take away some of their power and balance things out. Because once that balancing out happens, allegedly, then there's no need for the movement anymore. The actual point of the word contains basically a limitless shelf life, because you can keep on calling it feminism. It's no longer attached to a specific period of history. And any word which focuses only on one gender will always be divisive. And no matter what a person says to you, the word cannot be anything else other than divisive. It's a bit like saying, oh, we're going to create a multicultural group consisting of only purple people. What about all the other colors?
Okay, here's another quote in that same vein. This is by Andrea Dworkin, radical feminist and writer of The Root Cause. This is a speech from the 26th of September 1975 at MIT in Cambridge. Open quote, "Only when manhood is dead, and it will perish when ravaged femininity no longer sustains it, only then will we know what it is to be free," close quote.
Wow, the future is female. Bring it on. Bright future. Let's kill off all the men and the boys. Oh dear, who's going to build our roads? Who's going to build our hospitals? And who's going to do all the hard labor that you take for granted? But that's another subject. It'll all just magically fall into place.
Now you're making this complicated.
No, I've done it.
So I saw this post on Facebook a couple of days ago, and it was a post of the Dutch version of Survivor. The reality TV series Survivor. In this particular series, what they did was they took the tribes and they created a male tribe and a female tribe and put them on separate islands. What apparently had happened on that show was, in the course of I think a day or two, the men had built shelter, they built fire, they started rounding up resources like food and so on, and started sort of building infrastructure to survive. In that same time, on the women's camp, and I'll see if I can find this link and include it here so you're not taking my word for granted. I know that freedom of expression is a right enjoyed in free democratic societies around the globe. While I personally don't begrudge anyone the right to their opinions, my question to you is, what do you believe the material impact of quotes like these have on our day-to-day lives? Why are these quotes like these important to highlight?
There was a physicist / mathematician many, many thousands of years ago who said that the universe is basically like a giant thought engine. If you just look at common sense, if you look at an inventor, how everything came to be, a car didn't just fall off a tree somewhere. Somebody sat and thought it up. A group of people sat down and had this idea. They didn't know what the idea looked like. They started off with a very nebulous, very sort of hazy idea of what they wanted to do. They wanted to sort of improve mobility, or they wanted to improve industry. Is that you're investing mental energy in a certain direction, eventually it's going to find a material outlet. And what that means is if you give enough thought, if you are so determined over a long enough period of time that you are going to create a car that can run without polluting the environment, or can run on water, or you can make a car for under $100, I promise you, with enough human thought, it is going to become reality. This is an established, empirical, demonstrable scientific fact. And everything that you see around you first existed in the realm of thought. So it is very, very important to understand the power of the mind. And regardless of what your individual philosophical / religious, or the lack thereof, beliefs may be, it has been well established across all known literature that the mind is a powerful thing. I mean, you can literally think yourself sick. It's possible. If you have enough anger and you hate somebody enough, I promise you're eventually going to develop ulcers. You're actually going to start feeling it in your body, that the emotions you're feeling are painful. It's easy for people to demonstrate. Now, the reason these quotes are destructive is because they are taking charge of your thought process, your consciousness. They're changing the way you think. If you are taught again and again and again that men are the enemy, are you going to shed a tear when somebody kills them? Of course not. I don't know if you're familiar with the expression "learn off by heart." I don't know if you know where that comes from, Sean.
Have it memorized? Yeah.
Don't you think it's strange that we associate this as the center of thought, and yet we say "learn by heart," which is here? Can I tell you where that symbolism comes from? It actually comes from the ancient Greeks. The Greeks, in the Greek way of studying and learning, they felt that information was best learned when you felt it. And the electromagnetic field that's formed around the heart is several times more powerful than the electromagnetic field around the brain. And this is not woo-woo, new age stuff. This is well established, is that if you feel your subject matter, the subject matter becomes real. But it first starts in the realm of thought. So if you plant a seed in people's minds, you tell them all men are evil, all men are evil, all men are evil. Even if it's a lie, if you keep repeating the lie often enough, people eventually integrate it into their belief system subconsciously. In other words, it's an automatic reaction. They don't even think about it anymore. And when that thought becomes entrenched, eventually that thought is going to start generating energy in motion, otherwise known as emotion. And eventually those emotions are going to teach the people who believe those thought systems to start acting out of them. This is not rocket science. If you believe men are the enemy and you believe that thought long enough, eventually you're going to get to the point where you act out on that belief because of fear. Because fear teaches you that you are being threatened. And if you see the enemy as the threat, then the natural instinctual survival / fight mode of response is, how can I eliminate the threat? And that is why these quotes are so powerful to examine critically. You have to take every single belief system that you've assumed to be true and you have to challenge it. Because until you do that, people are going to remain sheeple. And sheeple, it's basically a merged word between sheep and people.
Sheep and people, right. I mean, and to your point, a lot of what we're talking essentially is the prism through which we all view the world.
Yes.
So, some people will see an accident happen and you'll have a police officer who'll go around and take statements. Now, we all saw the exact same event occur. But you'll have different perspectives, different people who saw the same accident. And people see and interpret things based on their worldview, their prism. So to your point, if you view, in this instance, all men as dangerous, potential rapists, toxic masculinity, all you see around you are threats. Everyone is dangerous. And you walk around in a constant state of panic and fear. Now, it doesn't make it a fact that those people are dangerous, but in your mind, because the prism that you're seeing them through paints them all as potential threats, that's the way that your belief system is now going to manifest itself in the things that you do, things that you say, things that you believe, positions that you support. This database, do you intend to update it, and who would you like to use it as source material? Will it be set up like a Wikipedia where others will contribute to it?
And what I'm hoping will happen is that this work lives on ahead of me, that, people are free to update it, use it as they wish. And they don't even have to quote me as the compilation author. I would appreciate being recognized for it. But ultimately, this true wisdom is something that should pass on. And this is why I so firmly believe in the family, because the greatest gift that we can give our children as men and women is a living example of how we treat each other. And all knowledge, all progress, it's not technological. The way civilizations progress is they progress in their consciousness, their thoughts, their feelings, and their attitudes towards each other. And the best legacy we can possibly give our children is the legacy of our example. And knowledge eventually becomes the platform for wisdom. And I see it as a way of paying it forward. You know, I put a lot of work into this compilation, a lot of work into this database. And I'm hoping that that database will be used not as a weapon to teach people to start hating feminists, because then it defeats the whole object. The purpose of this database is to open discourse. It's for people to take this stuff and make it better. My intention for the database is for as many people to take it, to research it, critically examine it, and say, hang on a second, but this, that, and the next thing, maybe we should include this quote. Maybe it will add more dimensions to our thinking. The purpose is to get people to think for themselves. The whole purpose of doing any of this stuff is to give people a message of your life. You know, it's not just a whole collection of, you know, to me, I put this together with the intent of people read the stuff and they say, wow, I never thought of it. I never thought of it in those terms. I never thought of feminism being underpinned by this. You know, why? What do we do with all of this stuff? Okay, so we've got this quotations database. What are we going to do about it? As I said earlier, this is a work to be taken forward and improved upon. It is my hope and fervent wish that everybody or anybody who reads it with the express intention of doing something with that knowledge. You're not just reading the stuff. I would hope and expect that those who read it, you read it with the express intention of taking it to the next level. If you want to update it, if you want to improve upon the referencing that I use, but please understand the purpose of the database is to create awareness.
Give us that snippet we've all been waiting for.
Here's the truth of the matter. Here's what people in power don't want you to know. You're more than your body. You're more than your body. And it doesn't matter what religion tells you. It doesn't matter what politicians tell you. It doesn't matter what the atheists or the theists or any of these established groups tell you. You are more than your body. You are much more. And it goes back to a belief. If you believe that all you are is a person that's going to live, you're going to die, and that's it for all eternity, there is no logical reason for why you'd be doing any of this stuff. Why would you do it? Why would you become an activist when you could just have it easy? I mean, I can open up a feminist school tomorrow and get a lot of funding from my government. Why do I do all this difficult stuff? I have paid a huge personal price to bring you this video. I've paid a huge, and you have no idea what a price I had to pay, psychologically, mentally, financially. I paid a huge price to do the activism work that I do. And I've been doing this stuff since the age of 7. And it was never easy for me. What logical reason would you and I or any person have to read this quotations database, even read it, let alone actually act on it? If you can go about your lives and just make it easy, you know, get a nice job, get as much money as you can, screw over the person next door, because after all, we're all competing for resources. This gets to the core of human nature. Humans believe that they are nothing more than their bodies, and therefore they will act according to the rules of the body. They will say, listen, I'm going to die, so why must I be a nice guy? Why must I be a nice girl? Why must I be a person who cares about the feelings of others? If I know I'm only going to live for a small bubble of years and I could die tomorrow, I'm going to screw over everybody as much as possible. Why would I care about activism? And if you think about this logically, there's no logical answer. The reason we are activists, the reason we do this stuff, the reason why people even consider listening to the message of an activist is because some part of them intuitively tells them something's wrong. What is that part of you? And until human beings wake themselves up to that reality, that you're more than your bodies, and that you are more powerful than you realize, all of this stuff is pointless. All this activism is a load of nonsense. You're wasting your time. We do activism because we instinctually know that there's more to us. And it's time to start exploring that. So here's the magical recipe. Here's the magic formula. You can defeat this genderless, colorless enemy by focusing on love, by focusing on the exact opposite of what they're focusing on. It's time for the discourse to move to the next level. It's time for us to start rebuilding love between men and women. So here's what you can do every single day. If you've got a special man or a special woman in your life, go home and love them. Go home and hug them. Tell them how much you love them. Put pictures on your Facebook profile every single day of a good news story. Keep bombarding social networking with positive stuff. Share stories of success. So where does it start, ladies and gentlemen? It starts with you.
My 2 cents here is true peace between the sexes can only happen when there is understanding and personal healing. Understanding cannot happen without dialogue, and even if it means hearing things that are offensive. It means having the courage to have things that you're going to disagree with.
And not only
freedom of expression allows for people to say things that you're not going to agree with. And you know what happens to people who get offended? Nothing.
Well, nothing at all. And if we understand that there's a common humanity, and I don't care what you call it, you can call it the soul, you can call it a nice, happy feeling, whatever word you give it, it still points to the same stuff. We sense there's a common sense of humanity. And the way all of these wars have happened is by teaching people that we are completely different from the people that we hate. That there's
dehumanize the enemy.
You dehumanize the enemy. It's happening to that part of the globe. It's happening to people of that skin color. It's happening to people of that persuasion of belief. It's happening to people of this and blah, 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 blah. They are the enemy. We're the good guys, and that's the end of it. The way you end the war between men and women is to get men and women to realize that they come from the same divine creative intelligence, that they come from the same stuff of the universe. And whether you like it or not, I tell you something, the human race is at an impasse. If human beings do not realize their truth about themselves, their true natures, I promise you we're going to lose this. We're going to lose this war. We're going to let the small group of people and governments dictate human reality for everybody. Is that worth it? Do you want your children to grow up in that world? And this is so important, and you can see this in world events. We are at a critical time in our history.
Jason, thank you very much for your effort putting this database together. And thank you for helping us to understand some of the context behind some of these quotes. I will do my best to get your database attached somewhere that people can get access to it. If you enjoyed the show and want to see more, join our Facebook page called The Man Cave by Gentleman United. All of our shows, tons of additional content, and invitations to future shows are posted there. You can add to the conversation and suggest future discussion topics. Please like, comment, share, and most of all, subscribe by clicking the Gentleman United icon. I promise it's free. Thanks again for joining us in The Man Cave.
Enjoyed the show? Like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for joining us in The Man Cave.